a bit of news regarding radicalization.
They have arrested individuals.
How do you convince them that your interpretation is more correct, or you have not been indoctrinated by the system?
Very, very interesting question.
So recently in Singapore, there's been quite a bit of news regarding radicalization. There's been the youngest guy that got issued a restriction notice by the ISD, as well as even in our neighbouring country, Johor, there was just an attack on the police station. And so we thought that radicalization as a topic is something that is very important, but we don't really know much about. And so today we have invited Dr. Mohamed bin Ali here to join with us. His name is very cool.
Welcome, Dr. Mohamed Ali.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, when I first opened the door, right, he's like, "Hi, I'm Mohamed Ali." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, you are."
So Dr. Mohamed is one of the foremost authorities on inter-religious relations in Singapore. And in fact, he's the co-chairman of the Religious Rehabilitation Group. So he's been counselling radicalized individuals for over 20 years now.
Also a very brave man for coming to talk about this. I think this is a very, very sensitive topic. We need to tread a bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think maybe we can start with you sharing with us a bit about what the RRG does.
Okay, the Religious Rehabilitation Group, we call it RRG in short, has been around for slightly more than 2 decades. The formation of RRG was a reaction to the discovery of the Jemaah Islamiyah way back in 2001, where JI, they planned to bomb several targets in Singapore, the US Embassy, the Australian Embassy, some critical infrastructures in Singapore.
Yeah.
You know, like the water pipeline that links Singapore and Malaysia.
Right. Is it the Changi Airport Tower as well?
Yeah, one of the JI leaders planned to hijack a plane from Bangkok to crash it on Changi Airport.
Right.
But something that we need to understand here, that terrorism or acts of violence is not something new in Singapore. We have, faced threats from racial riots, confrontation. But the threat posed by JIs was something very different back then because of the religious element.
Yeah.
So when the ISD arrested these individuals, they did not believe that they were doing something wrong. That's our jihad.
Right.
I'm not sure whether you have heard about the word jihad, right? The authorities realized that such a threat, need a kind of strategic response. Consult the religious leaders, the religious communities. And this has led to the formation of the RRG in 2003. I can still remember, back then, the Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong, right after the arrest, he invited around 200 religious leaders and community leaders at the Kallang Indoor Stadium to brief about this development. But one important thing that then PM Goh Chok Tong mentioned is that this arrest has nothing to do with Islam. It's nothing to do with the Muslims. It is a problem of national security.
So I think this is a good point to make the important distinction that what we are talking about today is not just specific to Muslims or Islam. I think because Dr. Mohamed here, majority of our experience is with rehabilitating Muslim radicals. And so a lot of the examples that we are going to be using today will relate to that. But of course, this happens across religions, across races. Yeah. And I think maybe we can start by making the clear distinction of what Muslims actually believe and what are radical ideas that are developing. So one example was what you mentioned just now was jihad. Could you maybe lead us and clarify what that term actually means?
It basically means to strive or to put effort into doing something good, right? But one of the meanings of jihad in Islamic tradition, especially in Islamic legal tradition, is to be involved in a legitimate battlefield that is prescribed by Islamic law. If you look at the history of the Prophet and Islam, there were battles in the past. Even this happened in Christianity and Hinduism.
The Crusades.
Right? The JI members, they legitimize their actions of violence by claiming that it is an act of jihad.
Yeah.
This is a strategy. A strategy to mobilize individuals, to indoctrinate others. Right? So this is where I think for many years we have been trying to correct these misunderstandings of the religion.
Do you think that you can share with us the line that was from perhaps the Quran where it's often used to weaponize to weaponize the mind.
Yeah.
Many of these individuals who belong to Islamist or violent Islamist organizations, they quote Quranic verses that would reveal on the jihad that happened during the time of the Prophet.
Yeah.
Right. And the context was different.
Right.
Their enemies were the pagans, were the non-Muslims, those who do not follow him, right? That jihad or that battlefield was permissible because there was no other way out. It was the last resort.
Right.
When God, for example, said that you kill the disbelievers in the Quran, that disbelievers refers to a specific group that happened during the time of the Prophet. They were the enemies of the Prophet who fought Muhammad and his companions.
Right.
So that verses of the Quran cannot be used in today's context
to describe general non-Muslims.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And fighting in the legitimate battlefield is very different from bombing, from suicide attacks.
Right.
So how can they claim they are doing jihad and they are doing killing and suicide attacks and things like that?
But I'm curious, right? Like, I mean, obviously we don't hear about this radicalization news every day, but under the surface, how many Singaporeans are actually, getting
is there an estimated number?
ISD, over the years, they have arrested individuals under ISA for terrorism-related activities.
Internal Security Act.
They have arrested individuals from the GI group, self-radicalization. I think over 100 individuals.
Oh, shit.
But do you think that only these few arrestees, they were the only one radicalized in Singapore? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do you think that if you are talking to someone, interacting with someone, you'll be able to tell whether they are like, there's some early alarm bells?
No, it's very difficult because it has to do with people's inclination and passion about religion as well.
Yeah.
It's very sensitive.
What would you say are the telltale signs? Because, for example, right, in this case specifically, because it's recent, so that's why we keep talking about it also, right? So on one hand, he say he want to go and work part-time to fund his travel to Afghanistan. And in that case, then as a parent, I'm like, wow, my son want to go and work part-time, want to earn his own pocket money. It was so good. Then I should support him.
It looks positive.
Humanitarian effort.
Yeah, exactly. And also something else that the parents actually realized, but then they didn't think that it was cause for intervention, was that he stopped celebrating like females, classmates' birthdays and all this kind of thing. So then it could just be, maybe he's just not friends with them, lor.
Yeah.
But at what point does this become a telltale sign of radicalization?
Okay. I think some of the key ones are, for example, when a person, when parents, for example, when they notice or they discover their children or loved ones frequently browsing extremist websites.
Right.
Yeah. Or even a step before that, frequenting, Islamic websites. No, although they're not violent, but they might be kind of suspicious.
Sudden curiosity.
But it could be, oh my God, my son loves God so much.
Yeah, that's why we have to monitor first.
It's a combination.
Like just your brain, Sorry.
And you have to give time.
You
have to give time. Yeah. Self-radicalization today has a lot to do with what you say, the internet, social media platforms. They have become part of our life. And we cannot stop that from young people. At the same time, extremist organizations and individuals, they are very smart because they have used and manipulated these platforms for the purpose of justification and recruitment. If you ask me today, is ISIS still alive? ISIS, in reality today, ISIS has lost its territories. They have lost their military capabilities. But one thing, they have been very successful. They were able to disseminate, to propagate their ideas and propaganda through the internet. And they have managed to influence young-minded individuals from across the globe.
Yeah.
When you talk about, say, for example, ISIS disseminating their messages, what does that look like? Because I can't imagine it's like an Instagram post with like a caption.
Yeah.
Yes, good question. They produce online magazines. For example, ISIS produced a magazine. If a young Muslim, maybe with no knowledge or very little knowledge of Islam,
impressionable lah.
he can be easily swayed into what has been written there.
Right.
Because the magazine is a magazine of Islam that contains a lot of Quranic verses and prophetic tradition.
Is it difficult to get hold of this magazine? If I Google search, can I find it easily?
Yes, you can.
Oh, damn.
Oh.
Groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, or Boko Haram, or Jihad, or all these groups, they need to use religion because of two purposes. Number one, for the purpose of legitimacy and justification. So when they justify their actions through by using religion, don't you think people will get attracted?
Yeah.
Also, you can't argue with that.
Can't argue. Number two, they need religion to mobilize and recruit people.
Right.
If you take out the element or this element of religion from ISIS, do you think they can survive?
Difficult.
I don't think they can survive.
No reason to read their magazine also. Magazine is free, right? Presumably. It's free, right?
Yeah.
Where
It's
their
a
budget?
PDF.
No, hey,
budget.
I still have a sitcom schema if you think about it, you know what I mean?
That's true.
And this is not new. In the past, Al-Qaeda has also used online magazines.
Actually, it's been from the test of time, like publications, press, media, since the very beginning, like even in the 20s or the 30s, propaganda has always been like shared.
They have their own media production, media team.
You imagine you meet someone from ISIS, then what you do? Oh, social media team. It's like, oh, that's so un-ISIS of you.
So that means when they produce the really low quality like videos, actually it's purposely on.
They growth hacking, dude.
They're shooting on Super 8.
If you have,
watching Mr. Beast video,
for
like the
example,
thumbnail, that
if
shit.
let's imagine this studio, right? I believe that ISIS has a room like this studio, which is 10 times bigger and more sophisticated.
Yeah. Not hard to fight our studios. So.
Because they know that this is their battle.
Yeah.
They can only win this ideological battle, not physical battle. And that is where my argument, my own personal view about this is, until today, we have not yet managed to get the true remedy for self-radicalization.
Yeah. In your experience, was it possible to rehabilitate those that are indoctrinated? Because to a certain extent, they would feel like you represent the bastardization of the religion and they represent the true faith. How do you convince them that your interpretation is more correct? Or you have not been indoctrinated by the system?
All right. Very, very interesting question. Like your religion or many other religious traditions, there is this notion of interpretation of scriptures.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, and others. We don't have the so-called power or ability to stop anyone from
Believing in anything.
believing or holding to one or particular interpretation.
Yeah.
But what we are very concerned is there's only one thing: the legitimization of violence. If you look at all the different interpretations, none of the Muslim scholars who interpreted the Quran, they justified that the verses of jihad in the Quran legitimize violence in today's context, killing the non-Muslims and killing the Muslims who do not adhere to the kind of Islam as subscribed by the terrorists.
Right. So it's the fact that their interpretation contradicts the rest of the Quran, right? Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I think you can believe in this school of thought or that school of thought, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to violence and when it comes to national security, we do not compromise that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, we don't care what interpretation you have, as long as
Fair enough.
We have to commit now.
Yeah.
You and me, that we have to reject violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like the big difference with the more recent case also, right, is not just that. So essentially the boy was trying to influence some of his schoolmates, right, and then preparing to go and fight for the Black Flag Army overseas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then one step further is that he felt that if he couldn't go on this trip, if he couldn't maybe like find the funds for it or whatever, he is willing to, under the direction of the BFA, carry out attacks in Singapore on Singaporeans.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was, I think, when they really took it seriously.
He crossed the line, essentially.
Yeah, across the line.
Yeah.
But concepts like jihad and other doctrines, these are not the only things we discuss in our counseling sessions.
Right.
We also need to identify whether he or she has other issues, especially those related to the Singapore context.
Right.
When we spoke to the jihad detainees, for example, some of them, they have issues living in Singapore.
Oh.
Why? Because Singapore is a non-Islamic system of governance. Singapore is not an Islamic country.
Right.
They possess a sense of hostility towards the so-called religious other.
Right.
And something that they forget or they misunderstood is also against Islam for us to hate the non-Muslims. And there is one verse in the Quran which I can remember. In Arabic, it says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, which means, and we have honored the sons of Adam.
Ooh, Adam and Eve is in the Quran.
Yes.
A lot of Moses.
Yeah,
also.
I
All the prophets, yeah.
Yeah.
But Adam and Eve is like,
Yeah.
we kind of collectively feel like,
Yeah.
may not be.
Abraham is also inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So Singaporean Muslims, we are very unique because we live in three unique situations. Number one, we are Muslim minority. Number two, we live in a plural society. And number three, we live in a secular government. And let me say something which I think is important, that Islam has no problems with Muslims living in all these three conditions.
Right. That was my next question.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
this is something that they do not appreciate, or maybe they don't have the artist understanding. This is where we come in.
Right.
So we need to also, it's not always about countering violence and jihad.
So when you counsel these individuals, right, are these also things that you go through with them? And then how do they then come to that realization, right, that, oh, this is a twisting of the word?
All right, when we meet our client, those whom we want to counsel, the very first important step is for us not to talk about any religious issues. The most important thing is to build the rapport and the relationship. And then the next step is for us to gradually identify the issues that need to be dealt with. Because it varies from individual to another. Some individuals, they might have understanding about jihad. Some have misunderstanding or confusion about Islamic law in Singapore. Some has issues with hijab. So we have to identify these things first.
Yeah.
And this will take a couple of months.
How do you then know that they're legitimately de-radicalized? Because like you say, it takes several months, right?
Yeah.
How do you know they're not just saying what you want to hear at the end of the process?
Basically, you're asking, how can we know that one is rehabilitated? Right?
Yeah.
It's a very common question. If you ask me, there is no way we can 100% know that he or she is rehabilitated.
Right.
But there's a part here. After engaging the person for many months or many years, as a person who has been with him for quite some time, we can observe the improvement, we can observe the change in his thinking.
Right. At this point, is this person in jail?
It depends, because there are two types of detention. I mean, one is those who are given restriction orders, and the other is those given order of detention.
So just some context, like with the most recent case, they were given restriction orders, and that
means-
essentially means that you are not allowed to change your residence or employment or travel out of Singapore without the approval of the director of ISD.
That's okay though.
And also you are not allowed to use the internet or social media or issue any public statements or address public meetings without approval. But if I suspect that somebody is maybe developing some dangerous ideas, right, then what should I do?
Of course, I mean, for that case, it's clear cut. It's the signs are very clear.
No, but I suspect only. Like, for example, I realized that my friends start talking about some crazy ideas, right? Then maybe keep retweeting maybe like white supremacy kind of tweets and all that. Then they can play it off as a joke, ma.
Sure.
Like, I just thought it was funny, so I just retweet.
The first thing, is it continuous? Is it something that he or she repeats?
Maybe they recently started retweeting some.
Yeah. Sometimes they might doing a research project or what.
Oh.
Yeah.
To be a social experiment.
Yeah, very much. So it's really, it's not easy to say, okay, yes or no, you have to do this. No, you have to keep monitoring, keep engaging, and by monitoring and through the engagement, communication, you will know that he's genuine or not.
Quite a lot of it involves either speaking to my kid a lot, so then I get a sense of like who are they glorifying or what are they supporting.
Yeah.
But the other, like seeing who they're contacting or seeing what their like websites they're visiting, that one's a little bit more subtle because I need to be like tracking their internet browsing history.
Yeah.
So like, do you recommend if I suspect my child being radicalized, it's just about having more conversations with them Like, what's a healthy way to go about it?
I think most importantly is, number one, this is something that maybe we can observe in our own community. There is a lack of communication, interaction between parents and children.
Right.
Especially when both parents are working. You know, when I step into my house, that is my second work, you know.
You are such a brave man for saying that.
Yeah. Because the second job is our family.
Yeah.
I mean, usually parents, they will leave it their children with their computers, and they don't care. Because obviously children will say, oh, I'm doing my schoolwork. Right? Right, yeah.
For 5 hours.
For 5 hours.
Still on the same.
I also cannot study for 5 hours, no?
You're doctor already.
Right.
The rest of us got no book.
Yeah. So start by asking, okay, are you done with your schoolwork?
Yeah.
Yes. Then why are you still on the computer?
Yeah.
Right? By asking this question, the children become, they are aware that their parents want to know what they are doing,
Right.
even online. It's no longer the time in the past when I was young. Our parents are worried, where do we go,
Yeah. Now they want you to go out.
And now when the children are inside the house, sitting on the computer for hours, this is where they're scared.
It does feel like mischief happens at home now instead of outside.
Exactly.
I don't care what you do, you must come back by this time. Then you'll be okay. Times have changed really.
Because 99%, I would say nearly 100% of all the self-radicalization cases in our country happen online.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what happens if, let's say, I do suspect a colleague, right, that is surfing those websites and whatnot, at early signs, we're not that close.
Yeah.
So it's not my position to go and sit there and question his religious beliefs. So I report him using the hotline. What then happens to him?
It's better to be safe than sorry,
Agree.
I think it's extremely important for us to report. But reporting does not necessarily lead to detention or even the issuance of an ISA.
Right.
If the authorities make the assessment after investigation that he is okay, then he will not be.
Okay.
And
So they
also-
investigate first. Okay.
Yeah.
But that is reporting to the ISD, the government. But help can also be consulted from RRG.
Right.
Okay. So you have a hotline as well.
Yes, sir, because we have a counseling center where we can also talk to individuals who have even confusion.
Yeah. I guess the advice is that if you do come across a friend that is showing signs of this and they are willing to do something very, very drastic about it, then as a friend, perhaps it's possible to advise them to call the hotline to at least challenge the beliefs before you go to jail and die for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to at least see whether someone else can change your mind or to challenge the belief that you have and see what the other side is.
Yeah.
Have there been instances where someone has reported to or called the hotline RRG and you deemed a case as you're talking to the client that you really need to report them to ISD?
Yes, but it doesn't lead to the issuance of ISA to the person.
Of course.
Yeah, but it shows that getting help and early intervention helps a lot.
Yeah.
It helps the family. It helps the child.
Yeah. Prevention really is better than
And
cure.
then I was also thinking about it with the recent case. He actually tried to ask his schoolmates to join him, right? And maybe if the schoolmates had the awareness to go and alert the authorities, then they could have nipped it in the bud also.
Yeah. I think first and foremost, we need to understand that no one is born a terrorist.
Yeah.
No one is born with radical ideas imbibed in his mind.
Yeah.
It is only when someone, reach a certain stage of his life where he was indoctrinated.
Yeah.
He was exposed to these ideas. So because he was not born with these ideas, it was programmed into his mind.
Yeah.
We believe that it can be deprogrammed.
Yeah.
Right.
It can deprogram because this is not something natural that human beings have.
And that's it for today. Of course, a big thank you to Dr. Mohamed for joining us today
so much
and
for coming.
helping us
Thank
break
you so
this
much.
down. We hope that you've gotten a better understanding of radicalization in Singapore and how it can happen. And we will put resources and links down in the description below. So if you suspect anything, maybe you can hit there and there are help links.
Yeah. How do you like serious episodes, guys?
Very,
You're like,
very serious.
Yeah. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
So I heard this story, right, from Ryan. Last time NOC did a campaign for SG Secure.
Okay.
They approved this entire concept of what happens in the event of a terrorist attack and blah blah blah. How you can use the app, right? Some dress as terrorists and some dress as office worker. Then they got a plastic rifle. Then got the orange tip. You all know not?
I think I have that toy gun. Okay.
And then right, they called the SG Secure team to say that we need to film the report itself.
Yeah.
Then the SG Secure team says okay.
Yeah.
So they type random gunman blah blah blah. Then they take picture of Zi Jie in the thing, right? 5-10 minutes later, right? Like the Singapore equivalent of SWAT waiting for them downstairs. Then they pointed the rifle at Zi Jie because Zi Jie looks heavily armed, what? So he almost shot himself and then they just want to cry, but then like clearly everyone holding like tripod and then it's like put down their weapon or something and then everybody panic. So that was how one of the first major ads of SG Secure went about.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Which it works.
Yeah.
Is the point. Like at the end of the day they reflected, then they're like, wow.
The app actually worked.
You didn't think that something submitted by app would summon our SWAT team like that. So very impressed. Good job.
SG truly secure.
Yeah.